All right, we'll get call the regular meeting to order. We'll start off actually with public forum. About Meg,
Yes.
are you public forum today?
Yes.
Great.
Yes,
Why don't we just put Meg on the agenda under public forum?
that's right. I'm on everybody else's, so we may as well. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Peter.
Thank you for about 3 minutes today, because last time I was here, I was asking you, I was begging you, please take the survey for the Big Sky Governance Study, because we had a goal of 10% of what we think is the year-round population of Big Sky of 3,500. And a 1 to 2% return on a survey response is about what happens around the world. We got 10%, over 350 responses. So I thank you for those of you that responded. And what we're doing right now is the two consulting teams that do the fiscal and the planning work are evaluating all of that information, as well as all the engagement that's been going on since September, and basically what they say in Helena, making sausage. We're going to narrow it down to, well, we're going to draft up the 3 scenarios, and then that will be something that we'll come back to the community with, and then then it all goes into the final report. If you haven't spent a little bit of time with the executive summary that is on the report's website, it won't hurt if you spend a little bit of time there. It's all the information done on the status quo of the community. So the checkbook of the community and the operations of the community. And you were all there, a part of that. We got your information from Johnny and crew and Mary. So thank you for that. And I'll see you next month.
You're on the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment, non-agenda items, questions, comments, concerns? Anyone up on the screen? All right. Phones off, please. We'll go to conflict of interest declarations and then work our way around. I'm assuming Dick and, didn't we have Schrapp coming in today?
Schrapp said he was coming, but.
All right. Well, we'll take that as a no on conflict as well as Dick. So we can go into the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, and then we will go into discussion with Terry, who always has comments. Kind of backwards, but we always do.
Okay. Make a motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
all right.
The main thing I have to bring to the board today is that we lost our auditor. He resigned as a result of restructuring of their firm and some partner changes. We went out and talked to 4 different audit firms, and we've gotten 2 responses so far. One of the firms is unable to do governmental audits, and the third, we're just waiting for that audit bill coming. So we'll have audit bids for the board to review next month. Hopefully we'll get a new auditor in place.
Okay.
As far as the financials, we're in pretty good shape. We're basically about 175,000 under what we budgeted to spend. So we're going into the final quarter looking pretty good, and hopefully the building at March 31st will come in as expected, which is the resort's been quite busy. So hopefully the water use this quarter will need what we need.
Any questions for Terry as part
I
of
have 2. One that I think I understand, and I just want to point out to the community, is even though you mentioned that we're positive from a financial standpoint, correct me if I'm wrong, our legal expenses are still far exceeding what we budgeted.
Yeah. Legal expenses are $398,000, basically $400,000. We budgeted $200,000. So yes, that's
So even with us having a positive financial position, that's overcoming these legal disputes that we continue to have to defend. substantially more than you're even expecting. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. And then the second thing is, if you look at the documents, you're gonna have the perception that we're in far worse shape than we are because of the write-off.
Yeah,
Do you want to talk about that a little bit, just so everybody understands? We've got currently roughly $5 million in write-offs that we're doing.
yes, with the old plant, writing off the old plant, we had to recognize the loss of what was not amortized, not depreciated over the period, and that came to approximately approximately $5 million. There were $4 million in assets from the old plant that were brought over and reused with the new plant. So it's not a complete loss, but there is a paper loss on this.
So I just want to clarify, so that's the portion that wasn't able to be brought over and used.
Right, okay, right, which wasn't amortized.
Yeah. And what we normally amortize structures like that over 50 years.
Correct.
So it's a normal accounting step. It's not anything to be alarmed about, but if you looked at the numbers.
Right.
Yeah, that's
you would
why.
say, whoa,
Yeah.
that's bigger than our operation.
What impact does that have, if any, on next year's budget, anything that we're looking at? I don't care if it's a CIP or a 5-year. Does it have any impact on our financial decisions?
For next year, no.
Okay.
Not-
So it's
not
paper,
But
It's
yeah,
basically accounting line item.
accounting,
It's really no different than saying we had a truck that we were taking out of service and it still had some value on the books, we'd have to write that off. The
Got it.
difference is a truck versus a sewer plant. So the
Much bigger
dollars
truck,
become much
got
more
it.
significant. The truck no one would even notice it in the financial statements. A sewer plant, you notice.
Great. Anything else for Terry?
The big variances for Northwestern Energy, is that just related to the new plant operation?
yeah, we didn't budget properly for it. We didn't know what to expect, and so next year's budget. line items for Northwestern Energy will go out.
Yeah, fair.
Anything else for Terry or the consent agenda?
Harry's going, they looked at this stuff.
Yeah, well, I know
Now
now.
Now you have to prepare.
Well, and I will admit, I missed it last month because it was at 4 million last month.
Yeah,
Continuing to write off, so I was a little sheepish that I missed it last.
yeah,
month.
there's a couple more that you'll see that I'll discuss in the budget committee.
Okay. Anything else on the consent agenda? Dick. Okay, just looking up. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Alright,
Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. We do need to make a modification on the agenda. I believe, Johnny, we have a lady sitting over here that needs to move up on the agenda.
It's Tammy.
Oh. I'll go to Danny.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we'll just make a note.
Less younger of a lady than I have. Yes.
A note, we're moving up the agenda item for Tammy on general correspondence. That's right with everyone. Okay,
it's okay.
it's scheduling.
That's the new business, general correspondence.
To go quick here, I've also got David O'Connor, who's a part of our team here. Wanted to just take a 10-minute segment here and probably repeat what you all have heard about 10 times already as we lead up to our May ballot. Just a broad overview of the voter education that's happening today. Tammy actually has, if you want to pass those out, packets for you all. We're in the midst of our voter education, and we've got some handouts that help to supplement a variety of voter education events that are happening. Our next one is actually the Dirtbag Law Parade.
Thank you.
Up on the mountain on March 20th. And these are really intended to help educate the community around a livable big sky. You may ask what a livable big sky is. Well, it's really about fostering a shared vision for the place where we all belong by investing in the places and spaces where we live, play, and connect as neighbors. As we paint the vision for today, we can go to the next slide. For a livable big sky, having services, places and opportunities for people to call Big Sky home. The efforts that are outlined today are really a culmination of the work that we've been collaborating with you all on through the capital improvement plan, which helps us to plan for large scale investments by stabilizing our annual grant cycle and helping to eliminate unplanned capital requests, which I've been here for 6 years now, and every year it seems like we've got an over $1 million request on the docket that was unforecasted and unplanned for. So the whole point of this is to create some stability around our annual grant cycle. The actionable community plan outlined 97 projects that over a 2-year period and in collaboration with the community, those projects were vetted for need, funding gaps, and shovel readiness. Some of the projects don't necessarily need resort tax funds, although we'll continue to utilize the capital improvement plan to help our community forecast broadly through all of the grantees of resort tax, what projects are on the horizon and what projects need support today. Some of those projects, like the Fire Station 3 project, came up through our capital improvement plan, don't need resort tax, but they're very helpful for the community to be able to have an understanding and an environmental scan of what is on the docket for the community. 2 of the projects were determined to be critical priorities and required significant funding investment and voter approval should the board deem to move forward. What you see in front of you are the 3 ballot initiatives that you'll see on your ballot in May. The 3 logos here are organizations that are helping to move these projects and these ballot initiatives forward. But just to be clear, all these are ballot initiatives that are moving forward as a result of the authority of the Big Sky Resort Area District. Your ballot language is going to look very different than these simple little buttons that you see on your screen. It's going to read something to the effect of, for example, on the community park bond. Shall the Big Sky Resort Area District be authorized to issue bonds, blah, 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 blah. It's going to go on for a couple of paragraphs almost. Because remember, we have that 1% project that we need to kind of bake into this and work in tandem with our commitment through the $27 million for the plant expansion. So Big Sky is going to be deciding with their ballots. We're just asking folks to make sure to register, stay up to date so that you do receive your
I hope
ballot.
you didn't start at 7.
No.
Thank goodness. I'll be right back, Carl. I gotta get her turned around.
Okay,
Sounds good.
welcome.
We can flip to the next slide there. And what you have in front of you in these packets are 3 one-pagers for each of those ballots measures. So there's a resort tax renewal, there's the cold smoke housing bond, and then the community park bond. They also have FAQs. There's a website, resorttax.org/livable Big Sky. So I think everyone in the room and at this table is familiar with resort tax and what resort tax does. But for the general public, it's a sales tax on luxury goods and services that are predominantly used by tourists. At its core, it helps provide property tax relief and relief for fees for service like the water and sewer district. In FY25, that government funding was approximately $15 million. Without the resort tax, services would diminish and property taxes would need to increase, or service fees would need to increase. Resort tax is paid by the consumer and collected and remitted by all businesses. Huge thanks to our collectors. And the renewal will allow us to continue the grant cycle. Al, I think you were the last one that renewed this thing. And you did it at the halfway point, if I recall. That's when you were roughly about to do it. We're 7 years on the horizon of the resort tax actually expiring. So now is a good time for us to actually pursue this. And if the renewal happens, it allows us to bond. What is a bond? Think of a bond like a mortgage. And really you're borrowing against future grant or future collections, instead of it being against what a typical bond would be, which is a property tax bond, and you would see that on your property tax bills. Bold, underlined, exclamation point. This is not an increase in taxes. This is simply a reallocation of the dollars that we have today. Next slide. So how much are we talking about? Cold smoke is broken into 2 different buckets. The cold smoke bond, and what we're looking at for the cold smoke bond is up to $15 million in infrastructure costs. That's your horizontal infrastructure like roads and streets and utilities, and then up to $45 million of land acquisition. Total project cost being $220 million. Community park bond is up to $6.8 million. Side note, it is up to $6.8 million because we're confident that our 1% for infrastructure bill in Helena will actually pass, allowing us to spread this debt out into the 1% for infrastructure bucket. The cold smoke housing bond is the other ballot measure that's in front of you. Just looking at the map to orient you to where we're looking. I think many of you have already seen this, but we're looking at two components to this project. 260, or the housing trust rather, is looking at two components to this project. 264 studio 1 and 2 bedroom apartments for rent, and then 125 single family homes, both attached and detached, for purchase. Plenty of trails and amenity spaces to help connect the neighborhood. And then pricing will be ranging across a variety of incomes to address the missing middle. Primary access will be right behind Riverview, with secondary access via the Skywood entrance road on the left side of the screen there. Land purchase, we're hoping will take place, or the Housing Trust is hoping will take place in 2025. Initial infrastructure construction 26, vertical construction 27, initial occupancy in 2028, with those first 50 to 100 homes being delivered at that time. Construction will be spread out in 3 phases. Next slide, please. In 2020, Big Sky voted to fund the new wastewater treatment plant with the resort tax. You are all acutely aware of that, which added significant additional capacity to the system. The voters also mandated that the new capacity, a portion of it, be reserved for the creation of affordable workforce housing. Since then, the Housing Trust has been seeking the right opportunity to activate those water rights. I think there's been a few uses of those water rights already to date, although this would wind up using a vast majority of the remaining ones. You can see the review of the land criteria in front of you today, and all of the entitlements are underway, which in addition to that, I think annexation of this district is one of those criteria that would allow for the pursuit of this particular project. Cold Smoke checks all of those boxes, but the Housing Trust really requires that level of detail and attention to this purchase. Next slide, please. The problem facing us today with affordable housing, or with housing in general in Big Sky, is both affordability and availability. What was once unattainable for much of the workforce is now out of reach for all of it. Property values have far outpaced wage growth. You can see the current housing need there of 1,354 units, which I believe is kept up to date through the Housing Trust's annual assessment. And to date, over 80% of the workforce cannot afford to live here in Market. Next slide, please. The third ballot initiative is the Community Park Bond. The Community Park Bond helps to support a project by the Big Sky Community Organization to expand and enhance the park that we've outgrown. The community park renovation includes upgrades and improvements on almost every part of the park to fully utilize the limited space. The athletic fields and other components of the park were constructed 20 or so years ago and are used and outdated, particularly with old construction techniques. For example, the fill dirt for the athletic fields is actually roadbed fill that is not intended to drain well or withstand tremendous use. Next slide, please. So you can see in these statistics that the community park is extremely well used during the summer season and serves the entire community from toddlers to adults with recreational and athletic opportunities. We won't dive into those stats, but you can see them in front of you. Next slide, what are the remaining park projects? The estimated total park renovation is $13.1 million. BSCO has secured $5.8 million to date to complete several of the projects within the community park, including a paved pump track, ADA accessible playground, maintenance facility, BSCO team member housing, and then the expanded skate park. With the resort tax bond, all of the remaining projects in front of you would be completed. Next slide, please. After all community park projects are completed, BSCO will also expand programming to better serve our community by maximizing the space and working with park user to better organize, understand, and implement the activities for all to enjoy. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, BSCO has secured that $5.8 million to cover the projects underway. The remaining costs here through the resort tax bond would help to cover the remaining projects that will help to serve the community for decades to come. This is the slide that's probably the most important. The trifold is what will be mailed out to all voters here in Big Sky. There's approximately 3,100 voters active and inactive, both between Madison and Gallatin County. Simply put, a vote for means and a vote against means is really what the voters are distilling down here for a decision relative to the three ballot measures in front of you. The next event, actually, next slide. The next milestone is actually to register to vote. You all can help us spread the word here. And by the way, thank you for being the place of deposit for all of our ballots starting on April 18th. Please register to vote by April 7th. This is the most important thing. You know, your vote is your voice, and this is how you can participate in democracy within this community. At one point, there was a massive amount of outcry about splitting up and ensuring that each project had its own ballot initiative. This is how you're able to participate in our election, and the ballots will be mailed on April 18th. We're suggesting they get sent back by the 28th, and then the drop-off location starting on April 18th will actually be here at the Water and Sewer District during your normal office hours, and you can always drop it off at the county election office. So that was a lot of information, but we tried to condense this in with a 30-minute full presentation where David, Whitney, and I outline more specifics. But the next event, if you could help us promote it, is actually on March 20th at the Palace Room up at the Summit Hotel at Big Sky Resort. Any questions?
That's a lot.
Great material, just for reference.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. So we've shifted that. So get us into committee reports then. Okay, anything else before we go into committee reports? Compliance report then.
We're continuing the pilot project and the powder light, and also exploring a project that would be implemented this afternoon. Good point.
Okay, so it's underway.
Mountain Village. Yep.
All right, budget CIP. At a meeting. Terry, why don't you give that presentation?
Sure, okay. Well, with regard, I'll start with the budget. Budget, we're in the preliminary stages of it. I was gonna try to get something out to the committee members sooner, but I thought maybe I'd just wait until we got the rate recommendations from Ryan before I put the numbers in, so that you've got something that's a little weightier than what we've got right now.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and so the budget committee met on March 11th, and we went through a variety of capital items that we were going to be adding to our rate structure, as well as different ways in which we could apply or come up with a new rate to meet the gap that we have. Unfortunately, we do have a huge gap. This year, we had a $2.5 million budget deficit, and that's where we started, and that's what we have to close. In 5 years, we have to pick up the debt service on the new plant, and that's going to add $2 million to our operating budget. We tasked Ryan with coming up with a variety of options for the board to consider and for the committee to consider. At our April 1st meeting, Ryan will have the options set up for our committee to review, and then the committee will make a recommendation to the full board on how to move forward. And those, whatever the committee comes up with the recommendation, that's what I'll put into the preliminary budget that will be sent out to everyone to look at. And this coming rate increase, we're going to do it over a 5-year period, so that we can get this in place, inform all our property owners what to expect in the next 5 years, and businesses what to expect in the next 5 years. And that will hopefully bridge some of the gap. We're not gonna be able to bridge the total gap in 5 years. We're looking at potentially a 10-year and then go to work on that, and Ryan and the committee will work on that on April 1st and have something to present. So whatever the board selects as the rate increase structure in the next 5-year period at our April meeting will then be mailed out to all our property owners, wherein we'll have a rate hearing at our meeting, which will then be presented for final adoption at our June meeting. Any questions? Is there?
I'd add one thing, it was good news on that committee being. Important component to the budget that we're talking about is CIP. And Johnny and Terry put together a great template that will help with prioritizing, budgeting, avoiding surprises, and for a 5-year plan. And right now, we're starting to find some things that may have been missed or underestimated. This will help track those year to year to year, so all of a sudden we don't get the end of a cycle or a budget decision that is reactive versus proactive. And the template is great for importance and review and everybody to understand where the CIP is going. Anything else on that? I mean, that was helpful just to put them in front of us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's just really, strategic planning and forecasting and making sure we're putting eyes on projects and then, developing those projects and actually separating them from the budget document. So you'll actually see what we're approving for the next year and then that gives us the ability to go work on those projects and keep things moving.
Yeah. Should probably circulate that in the next board packet, one of those just as kind of a plan to say, hey, this is how they are. It's kind of a little competition there between the operators of the divisions.
When
Hey, I did this.
when I send out the preliminary budget, I'll include those project sheets for the board members to.
Yeah, that'll be in there and then we'll have the CIP template. That will be.
Great. Those are
Easier to
great.
look at.
Those would be a nice tool down the line.
Brian, can I add one thing
Sure,
to that topic?
please.
Just so the community is aware, we've been having a lot of conversations in these meetings about the fact that we have to have the ability to provide capacity, but don't control when those users connect to that capacity. That results in costs to the district to maintain that capacity without generating revenue. And so that's part of why we're trying to factor in as we look at these rate increases, making sure that the current users aren't bearing all of that cost. So we're strategically looking at ways to deal with that issue.
Maintaining capacity is expensive. And I think it really came to light in the last year, of course, with the plan upgrade. And we've got to look at a way that we can monetize or come up with a revenue source to maintain that capacity or dormant capacity. We're going to keep beating on that, I think. Okay, anything else on the budget and CIP committee? Questions? All right, go to the Flatiron committee, which met yesterday. You want to give a summary on that? I thought it was might have been a log jam meeting, but who knows?
It's interesting. This has been on the agenda since I've been here, so it was nice to get some movement on it. So we met yesterday, had a nice discussion about expectations and what we could see. Going to move forward, so I'll schedule an appointment with Susan and we'll start getting the framework put together so we can start redlining a document. I did ask for 90 days to get together to get that done because as you can see, we've got quite a lot of stuff on the docket that we're trying to get wrapped up. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Going to be some work that goes into that, but luckily I've had these others come through that I've been able to cut my teeth on. So should be a little bit more streamlined process and not take 2 years to get finished.
You had some momentum yesterday. I think probably was more productive in 2 hours than it had been in 2 years. Maybe it's just establishing, as you said, expectations and conditions, but they're all falling in behind these annexation agreements. It's going to be helpful. Anything else you want to add, Mike, from that yesterday or no?
So,
Good, so that takes us through committee reports, we'll get into business action items. Johnny, you can start. Anything you want to cover before we get into the reports?
No, I think we're good to go to move forward. So the first up, Central Square, this is authorizing us to sign the master agreement. We worked it out with them. We have the budgetary number. They do know that this is not going to start until July, but we got to get the master agreement signed so we can get things scheduled. What this is, best way for me to explain it, at once upon a time in my career, this used to be Lucity. It's an asset management program that helps us get all of our assets in, all the work that we need to do. We got a brand new plant that's got a lot of components and moving parts. We've got booster stations. We've got, PRVs. We've got all this stuff in the system, including pipes in the ground. This helps us track the lifespan and the cost of all of our equipment, helps them build into our CIP, also helps build into our depreciation, and it just tracks our manpower and work. Good case in point, over the last year from February of 24 to February of 2025, we completed over 1,400 locates. And those locates take roughly about an hour a piece to do. So that's 1,400 man hours that is dedicated just to that. So the system helps us break that down. It is a component that is built and has been around, and it has got a lot of other components that go to it. It's for more of a municipal government, so it works really well for what we're looking to do, generate work orders and PMs and emergency call outs and all that stuff. So looking for authorization to move forward with this master agreement on our electronic asset management program that we're going to implement.
Any questions for John before I entertain a motion?
What's the total cost? I struggled.
So the upfront cost to implement this is $23,505. And then it's an annual subscription of $25,000. And that's pretty much gonna cover our users for here until forever. Usually you're paying for licenses, but this will cover it. But it's a little bit more than what we were actually proposing before, but it's a little more system for us. And we've done a ton of research on it, and I feel really good about the system. I'm ready to go.
That's the other one here.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think everyone here is ready. We're ready to implement it, so.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the contract.
Second? Second. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Number two, Johnny.
I'm gonna let Amy explain this one. She done all the legwork on it.
Yeah, so we've always partnered with Granite Technologies, but in the past, Vince and Ron handled a lot more of IT than what we're currently offering here. So it's super important for us to have a secure system. So we had Granite come and take a look at absolutely every piece of our network. They made a proposal to us, which I think is super fair. We're going to add a bunch of switches and a ton of safety to make sure that we are at the highest level of security here. The cost to implement those pieces is $7,322. There's a bunch of switches and a bunch of user. We just had somebody who had an email phishing scam here at the office. And so the new system will monitor that, and we're going to take a look at each individual PC, and they're going to be highly participating in our system here going forward. We already have great security at the plant, but this is going to tie everything together. We have this community room where a lot of folks are coming and going. We need to really make sure that we have our security tied down. So the upfront cost is $7,322. And then going forward, the monthly cost will be $996 for them to manage that, to make sure that we're backing up our system, make sure we're safe, make sure our users are safe. With that comes some training to make sure that our users are doing the right things. This is a super fair. Oh, and also within this is also a brand new phone system. So our phone system's really dated. I've already found the savings on our Three Rivers bill for that system and then some. I think we were paying for a significant number of lines. So I think I probably found $350 right there to put towards this $996. So we're working on, balancing everything here. So any questions about that?
Before the motion, this phishing scam looked as legit as you get. I think Peter can attest and I can attest. It looked, I started going through it, and the only reason, if they had simplified the questions, I may have kept going with it. It was
you?
No.
No. I'm like, hey, and then I went in to say, hey, before you start asking me for Authenticon or DocuSign, you gotta let me know, this and that. She goes, I'm glad you asked, because it was phishing.
We got hit, the chamber got hit, Montana Title got hit. They almost got in the middle of an almost $200,000 transaction, and it was pretty convincing.
Was it recently, David?
It was a few months ago, but I think this
was 2 days ago, so they're still persistent with it. So it's that important. And for some reason, this was the second one I've had in the last 2 years. You and I have talked about this. So I think first and foremost, that protocol of anyone, before you ever sign anything, whether it's we're trying to approve something or anything, you got to check and make sure that we get it. Go the right. It looked crazy legit.
So having this system in place,
Well, if we can get Brian to come to our training, sounds.
I just walked in her office.
I make a motion to approve on that condition.
Okay, I'll take a second on it, because that was all. Okay. Second? How come no one's picking up Peter? He was close too. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you for taking these steps. This is very assuring. So
These are lessons learned from my past lives in security and penetration tests on municipal governments. There's incident in Florida where the operator sitting right there looking at SCADA and somebody had logged in and started changing set points and all that stuff. So
bad timing.
So with us growing and the community growing and stuff, we got to take those preemptive measures to ensure our security of our network. So.
And I heard you say it, but just to reinforce, this will help beef up the security we have within the office and our systems here.
Yes.
So we also have.
The plant is already locked
sophisticated
down, yes. I
plant.
think they're in really good shape compared to some of our.
The way it works, the SCADA system is always separate than your business network, but now with a lot of stuff being cloud-based and remote access and stuff, you gotta have that security to get in, so.
This is great. And now we'll move on to Larkspur.
Yes, we got Lori Addicks here. Come on up. So with all the recent, with the last year, everything that we've worked for and it's kind of backing into this. A lot of places would probably do this first, but we've done a lot of housekeeping. We've improved a lot of things, updated, brought everything to today. So the last piece, as we've talked about, is a strategic planning session with the board and what we want to put together for the vision of the district moving forward. So we reached out to Lori. Lori provided us a proposal for that. I can let her go through her proposal, as she's going to know it way better than I am, and kind of walk through the expectations and the deliverables of it. We do have a date set for June 9th. I do not know if we have a location yet.
No.
But we will get that and we'll get that out. So, Lori, I'll take it away.
Thank you. In terms of doing strategic planning, the approach starts with a survey process. And so we'll identify, I'll call upon you all to identify the stakeholders. And we'll use a Survey Monkey survey that they receive questions that gives you then data to work with in addressing building your strategic plan. So we'll have a working session where we'll actually work the data. And out from that, we'll work towards a vision, a mission, and strategic priorities. The strategic priorities are the pillars, usually have 3 to 5 of those. And from that flows your objectives and your key results. And so all of the objectives and key results becomes, if you will, an operating plan. So that's the big picture of the process. We will do a session with all of you, and we'll do a subsequent session in a second working session where we'll put the executive team and the superintendents to take it down into that next level. So June 9th would be that first session that I would facilitate with all of you. Prior to that, the survey process would have taken place. That's an overview. What questions do you have that I can answer for you about the process?
Deliverables. What do we have to work from after the exercise? In other words,
Yeah.
we did one, we've done 2 of these. We did a soft one. I'm trying to think anybody knows. You were here for the soft one. The soft one was just kind of loose and nothing really came. Well, a couple things came out. As soon as it was over, we realized we shouldn't do reallocation anymore. And so everybody just said no more reallocation. I voted against terminating, but whatever the case, that came out of it. And they said, that's it. And then there was this cultural change, a little bit of cultural shift. Second one was a little more structured. That was with, remember the name, Buzz.
Yeah.
I got Buzz. That had a sheet or 2 saying, you know, these are what you guys should work on, and this would be good to share with the community. I was looking at something a little more structured here that says, look, it is our position regarding A, B, and C as a board to take action in these areas and to improve in these areas and to reinforce these areas. And that was kind of something we'd work over, like once a month, we'd get a sheet just saying, hey, how we doing with that? So another example would be, you know, annexation right now, all the annexation we're going through. That was something that you didn't even use that word in a meeting. Now here we are. So those are the types of things I just wanted to remind you. Trav, you were a part of those back then. And of course, those retreats and Buzz and Les was very dominant in those sessions as a leader. And you kind of adopt the leadership of the board member at that time. So that was kind of what I was looking for. What do you see what we have as a active deliverable when we're done?
So deliverables will be a vision, a mission. So vision is your destination, where you headed for the next 3 to 5 years. Mission is why you exist. You would want to consider what is the current mission and does it need to be revamped? Because a lot has changed for you. Then the strategic priorities really provide your guidance for the next 3 to 5 years. Below that, where the action planning happens, if you will, the action taken, is as you get the supervisors and the executive team to draft what are our objectives, what will we be taking action on, and what will be the key results. So that's where you see the action that is aligned to your strategic direction, your vision, your mission, and your strategic priorities.
Great.
Okay.
As a team, does this all make sense? I'm thinking of it back then, Trop, when we did it, but things today are, do we expand the district? Do we go here? Do we want to encourage including other areas, or do we? And back then it was no, we need to focus on our ratepayers. We don't have capacity. We got to work on this plant upgrade. That's all we had. And it was just kind of monochromatic, just on it.
Right.
So now that's what I think we need to see here. So the next board that comes online can understand the foundation of the first 5 years.
Yeah.
But is everybody on board with this, or is there anything you'd like to see differently in this?
I envision the strategic plan document. I'm a business major, so a business management plan is the equivalent to what you're going to see in a strategic plan with your vision, your mission statement, and then your strategy and how we're going to execute that over the next 3 to 5 years. Then we'll revamp and re-meet and update the document, and as we continue to grow and change over the next few decades, then this document will help steer that. As a new board member or anybody coming into the district, this would be a good place for them to start to learn
Historically,
business.
a strategic plan was typically like 8 to 10 years out. And things have changed so fast that now what you see is strategic plans are in the 3 to 5 year window, which actually you can get your arms around it a little bit better as well. It's a shorter time span.
The initial survey,
Mhm.
the questions that are asked, are those kind of standard questions that you ask?
Yes.
Survey? Okay.
I'll generate those, send them to Johnny for review to say, do you want to modify any of these? We'll identify exactly who your stakeholder groups are, and get names and emails, which you must have in your database, that survey can then be sent. We'll get the responses back, and that's what will really work the data in that first session. Yeah.
Anyone else? This is an action item, so do you want to go through the terms of the agreement or?
It's just accepting the proposal, so we can move forward. The cost was, I don't know if you
I don't have it either.
It's 14.
Yeah. Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the strategic plan proposal.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimous. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you. Look forward to working with all of you.
Okay, I'm going to be careful with this term. The next item is to process the Boyne annexation petition.
Yes, in our last meeting, we coined this phrase to process. We have since met with Boyne. Got a better understanding on what things look like, understanding the difference between district service area and water use area. So to explain to everybody, the water use area will always be bigger than our service area. This happens in most utilities, so you can grow into it for the simple fact that it takes a lot longer to change your place of use and where you're going to use your water than it does to change your service area. So our current place of use is in front of DNRC. Our pre-app is in. Julie was scheduled to give an update this board meeting, but we kind of got the cart ahead of the horse and had to have the technical memo reviewed. So she got pushed to April. But with that, we're able to collectively get the information on what Boyne wants to do. So they want to annex in more property. Boyne has their own pool, so they're not asking for additional SFEs. And the way their agreement states is that they are able to use their SFE pool on Boyne own property. So you're going to see in the annexation agreement and the map that we had shared that a lot of it's like, where are they going to build it to? Well, they're not building anything there. It's just the place of use is getting extended out. So I never thought of it, but use a gondola to transport water up to a restaurant. So that was, the definition of that. So, filling up this tank and transporting it to another place. It's like YC. We don't own or operate everything over there, but we sell them water. So our water place of use covers all of YC. So we are ready to move forward and process this and, start working on the agreement. And as we set forth that we're going to recommend processing the application. So that's what you see in front of you today for approval to move forward with processing the application. They meet all the criteria so far.
Okay, questions?
Johnny, I didn't understand, is the full annexation area within the current place of use, or is it
No, some of it is
New
out,
being
outside.
filed
Yes. it's
will
outside of the
include
place.
all of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're kind of approving, processing this in anticipation that that gets approved.
Questions? Dick?
I'm good.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve processing and voting annexation petition.
Second,
Second it.
okay, Dick Fast, thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. All right, next up, process, Big Sky Fire Department annexation petition.
So if you guys recall, this is for the training ground and the future site for Fire Station 1. Amy and I went through and audited. We do have a recapture of SFEs through remodels and stuff.
Nice.
To facilitate this, so we do, and after talking with Dustin about reuse capabilities, we now have a plan that we're gonna also work through with our reuse to start looking at utilizing this resource for their training ground and fire suppression, and kind of couple that in with an infrastructure that we're starting to build. Just strategically place water tanks and have the ability to use reuse for area firefighting, and work with Dustin on that. So we'd like to incorporate that language in the agreement and work that out in the agreement as we move forward. I think that's a big feather in the community's cap to be able to do that, to utilize our treated water not only for irrigation and reuse capabilities, but also couple that with expanding snowmaking and fire suppression for areas that are in higher risk.
I gotta ask, what's the surplus number? I've been wanting that for a while.
I don't have a specific number, but we can cover this. I can tell you that. I have 9 right now.
I know one that can cover that in itself.
Right, yeah.
One in particular left them on the table. And by the way, when you couldn't reallocate out of it, when you finished the project, kind of helped that pool grow a little bit because you had nowhere to put it. Couldn't sell it to your neighbor at some LLC. Great. Hey, as long as we can cover this one, we're fine.
Yeah.
Real Creek.
I know.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to process the Big Sky Fire Department annexation petition.
Make the motion to process the Big Sky Fire Department annexation petition. I'll second.
You're up. Okay. Discussion?
What, yeah, what's the infrastructure required for this physically to make it happen?
Well, we called it a service line extension, but DEQ just came back and said that it's a main extension. So they're extending off the end of Riverview.
Mhm.
There's a fire hydrant. There's a 6-inch. They're going to extend it down a lot closer to their building. And then the reuse line that we're proposing to put back in, going back down to the canyon, we'll put in a T that once that goes in, they can come in and tie into that at a later date for reuse, to use on their training grounds for firefighting and stuff. They'll install a tank and a pump and have all that stuff. So, and then the sewer, they're gonna have a on-site lift station, if I recall. It's gonna daisy chain and pump up to the lift station.
So am I understanding correctly, the fire station, the plan is to move it?
Yeah, they will build Fire Station 1, is in town center right now, and they share that building with the sheriff's department. Sheriff's department's gonna keep that building, and they're gonna build a new station down here and move down to this location.
Okay, so that building will continue to be a public service building of some
Yes.
sort. So we don't get those SFEs back later. That's what I was
We
gonna.
have a jail in there at some point. No more pooling. Can't do that. What other questions?
I didn't know that.
SFEs involved in this number?
That's,
How many? I don't have the plans yet.
Mhm.
We have just an
So
estimate,
this is
so
basically, we're just considering.
that's right. Like we could look at what the fire
Or
station.
you can pull your head out of your posterior and
Hey,
really
hey.
zoom on your phone and.
hey, mute that. Come on now. Okay, all righty then. Susan. That's why I don't go on Zoom calls very often. Okay, what else? Fire station, feel good. Motion, second. Call the question, yeah.
There you go. Aye.
Aye.
All right, I hope everyone votes okay on this one. Okay, unanimous. This is interesting, consideration of conflict annexation petition.
So I put consideration, this is up by BI.
Yeah, it's some of you.
So up there in Mike's neck of the woods, all the way at the very top, if you recall where the house exploded last summer, the propane leak.
Cascade Ridge.
See, this property is up in that upper northeast corner. It is adjacent to our upper end, but at this time, staff is not recommending this petition to be processed at this time. This property currently has been approved for on-site well and septic. And with our work that we're doing through our water rates and our water structure and all that stuff, and with that particular case last summer, it was on a fire pump. That fire pump was rated for 1,200 gallons a minute. The fire department actually needed to pull more than that and subsequently burned up that fire pump. So our fire flows and fire pressures aren't really where they need to be as far as the standard that the district is moving forward. So I don't feel that it's a reliable source to be adding to that system when we've got a lot of improvement to do for it.
So just to avoid confusion, Cascade Ridge is in Cascade subdivision. Now, this is Summit View, correct? Just want to make sure Summit View is not in the district. Cascade Ridge is, and the system that you're referring to is in the district and is in Cascade Ridge. That happened.
That is, yeah.
It's about a year ago right now when that happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody understands what it is, and your recommendation for board action item is to reject the application.
To reject the application. It's not currently in our service area. It's not currently in our place of use. And I think it's just a very high risk at this point in time to put a system up there that we've got to do a bunch of work.
Johnny, why do they want to come into the district? Have they done the well and a septic already?
No, that they wanted to, before they started building up there, they wanted consideration for the district. Because I believe it is a joint well and joint septic system with the property next to it. Which I don't think is built on either.
Which is not built on either.
Yeah.
Which is their issues up there, not the districts, but anyway. Okay. Motion, either way.
Motion to reject the conflict annexation petition.
I'm sorry, you
Rejects.
reject, okay, just want to make sure.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to interrupt again, but would you please call for public comment before you take a vote?
Sure.
No,
All right.
thank goodness.
I was like, why aren't you saying something? So we gotta work this mute a little better in the future for these poor guys. Okay, so we do have a motion, we have a second. Can I do public comment then in discussion? I'll take that as a yes. Any public comment on the consideration for the Concord annexation petition? Any public comment? Without any public comment, board comment. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Got these mute buttons going here. I just want to make sure we don't have any.
Who was that face that kept popping up?
This is Mike Ducano, isn't
Yeah.
it? We recognize you, Mike.
Oh man, it's scary. I was thinking about growing my hair out. I haven't done that yet. Actually, I can't do that. Maybe a toupee. And one of those plastic noses.
Just use your kid's iPad.
Yeah,
There you go. All right, we're into the topic, Mike, for you too here. Spanish Peaks annexation agreement, first reading of the ordinance. Everybody understands you want to explain, just for clarity, for the public as well, first reading of the ordinance. We have two of these today.
Susan, did you want to weigh in before we got started on these readings?
No, from a process standpoint, you have, the district has processed the petitions for annexation. With Spanish Peaks, I believe we have an agreed upon annexation agreement. I'd love to hear that from a representative. And then you would be doing the first reading of the ordinance. Obviously, it can be call for public comment. It can be subject to change. If you decide to change it, we'd have another first reading at the next meeting. But you have to have two readings at least 2 weeks apart, and then the ordinance becomes effective 30 days after that. Are there procedural questions anybody has?
Yeah, I just want to clarify also, Susan, that if there's any modification between the first reading and the second reading, you have to go back to the first reading. Is that correct?
You are correct.
Okay. When would you like me to do the public comment?
I think generally, if somebody wants to explain what's being sought for annexation, then after that would be a good time to ask if there's public comment on it.
All right. Well, I'm going to open up actually with the applicant. John, do you want to say anything about this and come up and sit at the table for anything? And then we'll open it up to public
I'll
comment.
stand up and tell you that, yeah, you know, after many meetings and many years, I think we're finally there. So Susan, thank you, and Johnny for getting us there. But yeah, we agree with the annexation agreement and we're ready to proceed.
Okay. All right.
I really am out of this part. I don't know what you're talking about. Annexation. You mean, you know, in my mind, if you're going to annex something, you're going to take it over. Now, I can't believe that process Boyne annexation petition means that the board is gonna take over Boyne.
No, it's annexation into the Big Sky Water and Sewer District. So in other words.
Well, haven't they always been annexed?
Not all properties. And the same thing with John here. Not all properties in Spanish Peaks are in the districts, Big Sky Water and Sewer District. Not all properties at Big Sky Resort are in the Big Sky Water and Sewer District. And Schropp, I think the most important thing for you to remember in this, because I know we've talked about this in years past, these cases are unusual in the sense that both of these applicants are coming to the table with their own SFEs. They're not requiring SFEs from the district. It's a geographic boundary adjustment, and it has specific criteria in our ordinance that says you have to be adjacent to it. You have to set the criteria.
Okay.
That's why it's a process, not necessarily an approval of the application.
All right.
So he's coming with his own SFEs, and so is Boyne. It's a geographic boundary adjustment into the district.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we're making our surface area bigger by annexing this land into our current.
Makes sense.
Hold on.
Nice. I should have had Amy say that. She probably would have been more eloquent.
I can show you a map of the area that we're discussing right there in orange.
I knew you should come up with something here. I knew you should.
That helps.
The optics are everything. Okay.
So our district boundary is the red line, and we're discussing orange right now. Johnny, so that's what he's gonna read on.
Okay, so we have, this is the first reading, and I will go to public comment. Anyone in the audience or anyone on the screen that would like to comment on this? Check that box, public comment. How about from the rest of the board? Want to talk about this at all? Okay.
Brian, just to make sure on this one and the next one, we have an ordinance in front of us for both of these. If there's any change at all to that ordinance, we have to go back to first reading?
We do. Yes, that's part of our ordinance. And there are sub-agreements that go with this as well.
Yeah, so Spanish Peaks, we have the ordinance and the agreement today. Cold Smoke is the first read. The annexation agreement is still in draft because of the pending vote So we're just doing the read, but before the second read, the agreement has to be in place before we can do the second read.
So with regards to the Spanish, should we take these in a two-step process? In other words, Spanish Peaks annexation submittal in the reading of the ordinance? Just want to make sure that if we have issues with the agreement, we don't want to bog down the reading for the annexation. Do we have to bundle those in your?
Susan?
Yeah, yes, for Spanish Peaks, it's one package
Okay,
because the staff has negotiated, as John says, and for quite a while, I think that was a very gracious way to say that, the contents of that annexation agreement. But those SFEs are out of the 2000, I call it the YC agreement, the developers agreement. So they had those SFEs. We're not allocating out of the new, we reserved those in the plant for them because of that agreement. So they're not asking for new SFEs. Those are the ones that they have previously had allocated to their land. We're just lining up the land with the use of the SFEs.
sounds good. And we will need a second reading to cover both of those agreements, the annexation agreement and the ordinance.
Potentially, yes.
Okay, all right.
I do have one question, Brian, is it the recommendation of the committee that we approve what's presented?
Yes,
We have a board
Yes.
committee.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, just want to clarify that. I assume so.
And I don't want to speak for you, Dick, but I believe this agreement reflects consensus within the subcommittee.
Yeah,
Dick? Okay, just double checking. Okay,
Could we clarify so that section 32, there's some sublines drawn within the
Yeah, there's
section?
3 parcels. That
Okay,
were
so they're
created
just-
map.
they're just
They're all
parcel lines.
adjacent and they connect. They're all adjacent to our boundary as well.
So to give a little bit more clarity, this section right here, through our discussion, is developed with septic system, but we're bringing it into the district because having a little island there just doesn't make sense. And then if that septic system fails or something, then they can come and say, okay, we're gonna need to connect that to the sewer. But that's in the, you gotta go uphill significantly.
Part of it would have
Part of it,
to go uphill, part of it's down.
So we have provisions in our ordinance that due to hardship, we can give exemptions and let them build it in a septic system. Due to the cost and stuff, so, but that whole section is incorporated into the annexation agreement. It's just 3 different parcels.
we addressed this earlier and there was a little bit of a misunderstanding with regards to the ordinance versus the DEQ and separation and distance from public system. And I think we have consensus on that. We understand why these are being done that way. Okay.
I have one question, Brian.
Okay.
To Johnny, on page 4 of the agreement, we set the number of 1,800 SFEs to, if it reaches that number, we would do a full assessment. Is that the 80%, Johnny?
Yes. Yes, sir. Based off of our annual flow
Yes.
reporting, we'll be tracking all that and we'll notify Spanish Peaks when they get within 80% of the flow and where they're at. So that's the check for this SFE adjustment.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of the ordinance in the Spanish Peaks annexation agreement.
Make a motion to approve the first reading of the Spanish Peaks annexation agreement.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to interrupt, but could we also have the motion amended to include, I'm sorry, you did the annexation agreement?
I covered both.
Okay,
And
perfect.
I covered public comment.
Great, thank you.
There's
What
nothing
was
else
that
there.
question, Brian?
It was we were covering both the Spanish Peaks annexation agreement and the first reading of the ordinance.
Oh,
They're
thank you.
both bundled together. We did public comment. Just wanted to double check. So we've got a motion. Second,
I just want to clarify what your motion is. But I think that's what Susan was saying, is making sure it's covering both.
it did, yeah.
Motion or
Annexation.
Okay. Then I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Good to take this amount of time. It's a big deal. After 2 years. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Great. All right. Thank you for your patience, John. First reading of the coal smoke ordinance. Going to give a little background on it. I think this was a little more time sensitive. And so we wouldn't take 2 years to do it.
Are you gonna say something, Susan?
I was gonna say, this is different than the last one in which we do not have an agreed upon annexation agreement
Draft.
at this time. It's in draft. But because this is using Housing Trust BizRed SFEs, and because of the election, they were seeking some kind of assurance that that they could tell the public, and I think that's completely fair, that the SFEs have been allocated already and will be used for this property. So this is written in a way that says you'll do the first reading now, and you won't do the second reading until a number of items that are listed in the ordinance have been met, which include the election passes and we get an agreed upon annexation agreement. There are other things in there, but those are the big key items.
Great summary. That's in the board pack as well, if you want to see that, a few of the details to that.
So we don't have to approve this subject to those items because they're in the ordinance.
That's the plan.
Okay.
And there's a draft agreement, but unlike Spanish Peaks where we have an agreement that it would go from there.
I just meant, does the motion need to include subject to an agreement being created, but it's already documented in the ordinance that we're first reading. So I just want to clarify that in my own head.
Okay. I'm going to go to public comment. Anyone who wants to comment on that, both online or in the audience. Okay, we'll go into board. Board comments, questions?
This is nitpicking, but it probably needs to be correct. The ordinance, there's just a couple of verbal things. The first page, the capital letters granting the of CH coal smoke. I guess that should read granting the petition.
Susan?
CH coal smoke to annex lands.
I am also, what I would suggest is that you all listen to Dick's edits, because I do. And then if you're going to move to pass it with those corrections made, and then we'll make those and hold them for the second reading.
Okay, the second one, Susan, is on page C3. About halfway down, at the meeting held March 18th, 2025, the district made the following decision regarding process for annexation. The property is contagious.
Want to be contagious.
Sorry about that.
I want that.
I think it should be contiguous, right?
Continuous.
That may be as it is, but
What was the first one again, Dick? I'm sorry, I couldn't find it. C1.
It's where it says CH cold smoke. It should just say the petition.
it's about on the very first cover page, the fourth line down at the end of that, in the capital letters, granting the petition of CH coal smoke. I think that's what it should say.
Yeah, the words are missing, Johnny.
Yeah.
I got you. I found it. Amy pointed it out. Gotcha. Thank you.
And we agree we change contagious, or do we leave contagious?
No,
Again, subject to these corrections.
is that it, Mr. Fast?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So again, we've got the public comment, made the corrections. Board discussion, any additional? Okay. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of the coal smoke ordinance.
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Again.
Jared, second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First reading passes unanimously, so check a box. Gonna feel good to check a box. Hey, it is March, that's right. All right. Move on to old business, Johnny. Mr. Bucher,
Mr. Bucher.
come on up.
Mr. Bucher is also going to give a little update from Ace Mason on vacation in sunny Hawaii. And before Scott gets started, we have bumped Julie to next month. Just because we're having the technical memo reviewed by QSIC before we release it. All yours, sir.
Just gonna go over our letter. Pull that, can't pull that up again. On the plant side, post-construction warranty work, give me new furnace filter. Had a horrible time with blower motors failing, burning. 5 out of 7 Baldo motors have had trouble and through that, trying to figure out if it's a manufacturing defect or voltage spikes that we can clean up, some rectifiers on the power line between the VFDs and the motors. So this is interior to the plant. I know that's been a struggle. Thanks, Adam, for gritting your teeth and getting through it with us. Last plan was Trent was going to try a WEG motor, just a different brand. See if trying to get down to whether the issue was with ball door or with power quality, essentially.
Hey, Scott,
Yes,
how big are those motors?
they range up to 150 horsepower.
You might want to do a harmonics analysis in there.
Yeah, we have harmonic filters on the upstream side of the VFD. It's not on the downstream side, which seems like where maybe somehow these spikes are developing. And they're within the ball door motor voltage spike limit of 1600 volts, but something is still not working. We'll get to the bottom of it. We just need some time. It's got some deep electrical engineering analysis to be done still, or ongoing, I would say. Adam, do you have anything on the plant operations side you want to update this? I'm trying to know we're chewing through a lot of solids.
Yeah, similarly to phase 1, phase 2 that was handed over to us in December. We're working through operations there and fine-tuning that process. Trying to understand how we can most efficiently manage all these solids coming off the plant. Each day we're taking a step forward.
We're working with Denali Corporation now on cleaning out Pond 2, and Johnny and I talked about maybe having them come early with the skid to help with some of that dewatering, at least to get you out of the hole. See if we can pull that off or not. Otherwise, it'll just be about getting the new centrifuge installed this year. Stick around afterwards and do that.
Yep.
CIP project.
So just to clarify a little bit more, we have talked about this extensively in this budgeting and CIP to move the solids handling project forward with the issues that we have. Adam is plan is doing very well, but because of the new technology, it retains a lot more solids, and then he wastes that over. The plant with the colder temperatures and stuff acclimated or was already acclimated very quickly, so it has like grown like what we would see more in the summer during the winter. So it's a very good process that he's got built up, but now it's starting to rear its ugly head, and he's got a default system in there that can't keep up. So that's why we're pushing the centrifuge project, and then working with the knowledge to hopefully bring in a trailer mounted centrifuge, because Adam can only react 40 gallons a minute to the belt. And so he's almost needing to press 24/7. We've had to modify staffing schedules so we can have consistent processing time to keep him in room so he can continue to waste. So right now it's really testing the limits of the staff to try to keep everything going with the demand that we're putting on.
When things are going well for Adam, I think performance has been exceptional still. Pretty real good. Probably next month have an update for you on Denali's contract price and talk to Barry about pay applications, getting paid through Glacier Bank, so it's still running under the old treatment plant financial note. Reuse booster station. I'm just gonna read this verbatim because it's a lot of land work that Gallatin County kind of moved the goalposts on us this month. Still in progress. Met with Gallatin County planning staff on March 6th. They advised proceeding with a conditional use permit and land use permit instead of the 402 exemption as we've previously been encouraged to proceed with. Much of the information we used in the draft 402 can be used for the conditional use permit. The land use permit will be finalized when further engineering drawings and details have been developed. So again, just trying to nail down the ability to use the land for the reuse booster station when someday proceed with actual construction. YC1 pump station startup, I believe, is going better. Full capacity yet?
Yep. We're essentially the pumps up at the upper pump station are limiting how much we can run the pumps at the lower pump station.
Okay.
If we could run the pumps at the lower pump station, we would realize about 140,000 more gallons a day than what we're currently pushing out of that. So we'll probably have to take on an upgrade project up there eventually, get full capacity, but essentially broad strokes paintbrush, 500,000 gallons a day are being sent up currently.
Okay, let's talk, because the reuse booster station, I think, would also serve the same purpose. Sure. That model.
Yeah, we're just having to cycle. Yeah, we're having to cycle pumps on and off because we will overrun the wet well of the pump. So
Okay.
It's a good problem to have versus what we had before, and could barely hit 400,000 in a year. So increasing that pumping capacity of this plus.
Yeah, let's talk, because I'm interested in hearing more about that. Maybe that postpones the reuse booster station even further, as long as we can figure out.
these grandpa skids are doing a good job.
Okay.
You know, they're on paper, I should probably get a Kelsey and chat with her as well. But we're, on paper, we're realizing more than we were thinking we'd get. Just
Great.
nice to be on that side of the coin.
Yeah, nice to get some good news
Totally.
here and there. Okay. Gallatin Canyon. That project continues to bring every weapon known to project delivery against us. Still coordinating heavily with both Forest Service and MDT on getting the alignment through there, which is really trick, especially with two pipelines and DEQ not wanting both pipelines in the same trench. They are paving on some sections, but not all sections, and MDT doesn't like having two trenches, so we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, and just still not giving up and trying to jam both sides through with our plan. But it's a very, very difficult thing to run two pipelines through that 60-volt corridor. It's, as we knew it would be, but now we're in the thick of it. Big geotech on the Talus Point where the cliff comes down, and Bighorn like to hang out is going to be the key to figuring out how we can actually build it, and we can open trench it or actually directionally drill it, which will affect costs. Our team's pretty much at a 60% design, which is a milestone, and we'll walk the team through that in April with the design workshop. If everybody's on board, we'll go procure the GCCM. So basically your contractor partner at that point. I think we can set that contract up so you're only committing to pre-construction services, not construction, because we don't have, I don't believe we have the interlocal agreement finalized yet. Certainly don't have the MOU on where the money is going to come from to pay for it all. So we would have to have those in place before we could actually sign the GCCM for actual construction activities. But the actual alignments, if folks will let us do what we believe is both feasible and environmentally sound, you'll see those drawings and what stations look like now after 60% design. We're not going to go further. The idea was to get the GCCM on board and then finish design, head into construction later this year. Any questions on that? We had a meeting with MDT last week, but it's kind of a mixed bag. MDT, DEQ, Forest Service, name it. They all have different goals for the project. Some of them have no goals for the project. It's permitting, still working on that. There's still the drive is to include the reuse pipeline. We know we can back off of it if we absolutely had to, but the goal right now is to keep it in the alignment and pursue irrigation, snowmaking, groundwater discharge, all that. That's going to take several years. Not giving up on that yet. We know we can pull that thing if we absolutely had to, but then the district would be owed basically money to go find disposal and reuse for canning water at that point, which might affect whether you want to sign on. There'll be a heck of a lot to talk about at several of these board meetings this summer, so you all can make an informed decision. Rate study update. Graph, I believe, is on.
Yes, sir.
Ryan, you want to give a little update?
There's not much more to add. I think Terry covered a lot of it during the budget and CIP meeting update, but right now we're looking to bring, I think, some pretty firm rate increase recommendations to that April 1st meeting of that subcommittee. And then I am going to have a little bit extra work with Amy to kind of refine some of the pick and stick items that we had discussed at the previous committee meeting as well. And so I think those might follow on, probably not have as firm recommendations on the April 1st, but shortly thereafter. So.
Plan in progress. Once the coal smoke models are done, at least for storage. Zach's getting you a draft GM.
Yep, I sent it out yesterday.
Trying to noodle on a irrigation / reuse prioritization tech memo at your request last month. May not be the whole shoot match, but at least a brief tech memo outlining
what the various options cost, how much water we need to either dispose of or reuse, that we can kind of use to pick, I think, the most viable project in the next year or so, and really go after one of these, depending on what, especially depending on what happens with the disposal.
That's really it for me. Questions?
All right, thanks, Scott. Covered the base. Al. Northwest Energy, this is big. Hopefully next month it's really big.
See, I was gonna avoid putting it.
Nice job.
I'm on that, thank you. It's things we can't
The
control.
pressure's on.
Yeah. No, we continue to move along as we would like. I think I reported at the last meeting that the boundary realignment was approved by Gallatin County. So documentation for that has been signed, the Mylars, and deeds have been approved. We've gotten Susan's blessing on the documentation for the indemnification agreement, so everything looks good there. Northwestern Energy side has approved all the documentation, so now it's really more of a scheduling issue with the title company, and we don't know those dates yet, and I don't know, which piece gets handled first, but we're tracking right along. I'm hopeful, since Brian put it out there, I'm hopeful by the next meeting this is complete, but if not, it's not because there's a snafu or anything like that. It's just the timing it takes to get through the process. So I will let all of you know when it's done, and this committee can go away. Kind of exciting though.
Northwest Energy was working on Sunday. Al and I were getting emails, and the one thing you did a great job with was ironing out the title insurance and the value allocations and things like that. Northwest Energy is an incredible partner. To watch them take the leadership role, and like I said, working over the weekend to get this, that's why I'm so confident when I see a guy send me an email on Sunday.
Yeah, and you said that well, that should be stated. Northwestern Energy in multiple fronts has been a great partner. This is the second big transaction I've personally been involved with them. First one for the district, but the other is the Mid-Mountain substation that we were able to work with them on, and that was great. I think a good solution for the community for a challenge that we had, and they were a great partner throughout overcoming some of the many hurdles that were thrown in our way on that one. So
yeah, this is the third one I've dealt with them on. The Ram 8 was really complicated. Ram Charger 8, going across multiple property owners, things like that. It's the same team. And Roy came up here just to get the Mylar signed. Drove all the way up from Bozeman. And they just a great to work with a professional organization like that. So got to give them a shout out.
And then Brian, we had the substation too, right?
that substation.
Oh, yeah.
The district.
Yeah, I mean, district
before my
too.
time.
Boy, and that's amazing when you see that. So all this is just fine tuning as well. You gotta appreciate them. So
And
it's been a
Brian,
long one, Dick.
at this point, they will use some of that property down there as a storage area or as a mounting area.
Staging. It's
Staging
they're
area.
looking at the staging area, and it was a nice cleanup. It was a nice cleanup for BSCO. We shifted that trail over onto the district property and cleaned that up for them. It was just really good housekeeping for everyone. The usable land. We did site visit, ground truth in this, and it was a great process. And you were a part of it, Dick, because you went back to that Christmas meeting that was a little tense, and look how far we've come.
And we still, search and rescue building, is there anything working on that now, a helipad or?
Yeah, we got that all straightened out, but we've got to wait for the Northwest Energy to get done so we can renew their lease. And I believe, that is getting renewed for another 10 years.
Correct.
But we've got to redo the lease because we've got to adjust their property that they're after.
Yeah, we need the new legal description, and while we can anticipate what it's going to be till it exists, it's probably inappropriate to put it in a lease.
And that was another housekeeping issue that went along with this. Had a few things that need to be cleaned up from the past that didn't come up until Al started going through it. So I wish I said this before, Dick, when we had, when we did the BSCO deal. I think if we didn't do the BSCO deal down there with the SFEs, Al, you were on the BSCO back then, right?
Think so.
Yeah, and I mean, we need more win-win like that. I don't know what we would have done without it down there with the plan, so let's keep those coming. All right, what else? Al, that was Northwest Energy. Developments and subdivision. One thing I'd say just about the agenda as we do this, it used to be the highlight back when storage was always hold your breath right now until about April 1st. And we were doing those, had to make those adjustments. Love to get a report talking about flows, water use, everything that used to be the highlight of the meeting, but it doesn't seem to be the urgency anymore. How are things going? How are the flows? I know that the community seems to be going at full speed.
Yeah, we've got pretty good flow rates coming in the plant, 700,000 gallons a day.
Yeah.
A little bit, which is pretty significant.
Second part of that is storage. I mean, is storage even a consideration right now?
It's definitely a consideration. It took 2 months longer to get these pumps going than it should have. But we're pumping every day.
Okay.
I think been working out some controls issues with our integrator regarding level sensing unit in that pond. So I did, Johnny's trying to pull it here. In my report that I sent to Johnny, there's a little bit of a summary in regards to flows and storage.
Yeah, I want
for you.
bang on the board president a little bit. It's in the
Okay. Well, I like to talk about them too, so, but.
So there's the flows for February. Adam does them month by month. So we've been running. So 600. Between 550 600. So
Yesterday we pushed 630 into the plant.
And then there's your pond levels and comparisons. So then
You
there's
got the big I&I week coming next week.
But there's a pile of snow up there, so.
So 50 degrees on the radar next week. So now, just a reminder, that used to be our biggest scare right now. As soon as I saw that, you start looking at that, and you look at the I&Is, you look at the ponds, say, where are we at? So
I do want to point out, and I do contribute to some of the I&I that was closed up this last year, but compared to this time last year, the flows are down 9.5%. So that's pretty good. Looking at some of the past flow charts and stuff, so.
We also have new metering on all of this via the plant upgrades. That's a piece of these numbers that should have an asterisk on it.
So Johnny, based on what you just said, we're treating more, probably treating the same sewage. It's just not diluted by the iodine.
Yeah, so your concentrations are a little bit higher than not diluted out.
And so then the fact that we're treating to such a low level of nitrogen is even more impressive, right? Because it's more concentrated coming in, and you're kicking out something much less than we ever had.
Well, and to achieve it in temperatures, so biology during the winter months, I can't remember the exact math, but for every degree it gets colder, the respiration rate of your biology decreases. So usually you have to run almost twice as much during the winter than you do during the summer because the bugs are less active, and that's what we're talking about. His biology is just as active as it would be in warmer temperatures. So with the water temperature being consistent and not having very significant spikes, they're used to that colder temperature, and then also putting the covers on, we're not losing a bunch of heat and stuff out of those basins. So it's driving the train, and it's not even a year in full operation yet, and doing what we're doing. It's pretty impressive. So all the growing pains, I feel them. I've been there, trying to help out the best we can with suggestions and relief and stuff. But it all leads to why we're doing what we're doing over there. So
Flows are down, but the water usage is down too, so.
yeah, the water usage is down.
That's like the hot tub.
Yeah, the village is down.
It's gotta be something to do with that, I don't know, it just doesn't really add up.
Mountain Village is down 9.2%. Meadow Village is down 2.5%, and the water usage for YC is down 30.5%. So again, you probably see some significant changes when we get all the well meters updated, and they're a lot more accurate, but yeah, we've been tracking that, seeing water reduction, usage in all of our well fields and such.
So the four legs we used to talk about, again, this was kind of the fun part of the updates, but you always had the storage. That was always the concern. And we had some, what would they call them, waterboarding or freeboarding, you had to drop those down and get a little more capacity. So you had the storage, you had the water, you had the sewer, but to really get an accurate picture, you have to look at the resort tax receipts that come later. And that's kind of your GDP, your gross domestic product. And you're saying, okay, let's put these all on.
You've got to credit Taylor when you say that.
You know what, that darn Taylor was the one who coined that phrase 20 years ago. That's what I consider our GDP. But that tells you right there. I mean, it feels like the community is really going full tilt right now. And to see those four things come into play and actually drop. I mean, the storage down, your water down, your sewer down flows. It's amazing to see this fine tune, because if you can continue that trend, that's really something for the growth moving forward. And you had to sell me out at Taylor.
Don't want you to get
I'll let that go to you.
in trouble for plagiarism.
He's probably watching. All right. Yeah, plagiarism. All right. Development, subdivision, legal. What do you have, Johnny? Covered?
I had one capacity letter for Town Center Phase 2A, 73 SFEs. We don't usually cover capacity letters, but just so you can see it. Yeah. It's condos and single family homes. And no permits this month, but I have 5 on my desk right now, so it's picking up.
Got it. And maybe next month, follow up on some of those things we talked about yesterday with the West Fork.
Okay.
Kind of
Yeah.
be good to get back on the table. Thank you for catching that.
Mhm.
A lot of updates from them. All right, anything else?
Are any of those from Westport?
That are on my, no,
Not on your desk. We should jump on that before.
That's what I was thinking about next month's board packet. I thought you said you had 2 of them.
I
Oh,
did,
you
but they weren't
processed.
processed, so.
Good. That's a great one to catch. So,
Are they remodels or are they new?
Well, those mixed use buildings, those were new. Everything here forward is gonna pretty much be remodel. There's hardly anything left in West Fork, but
again, good housekeeping. Anything else today? April 15th, boy, the next meeting. Everybody's scrambling their taxes, so.
April 15th, yeah. I don't know if tax day's still on the 18th or if they've moved it back to the 15th.
It's usually the 15th if it's not on a weekend.
Weekend, yeah. Yeah. All right, anything else today? Everybody okay with the 15th?
Yes,
Okay,
it's a week after spring break.
all right, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Favor.
Second?
Sure.
Thank you.